Yo, what's up, tribe? We out here. Woo! What a freaking week. I've been back to back, but I am feeling so grateful, so blessed. And we have another extremely powerful guest. I'm going to let you guys all start to join and jump on. What's good, tribe? What's up, my people? I see you. I see you all joining in. What's poppin'? What's poppin'? Yes, Andrew, Danny, Travis, my guys, that's what's up. That's what's up. All right, guys, so check it out real quick. First thing before we get going, I want you to drop a win. Small win, big win, personal win, business win. Drop a win. What is a win that you had this week? For me, I'm really excited. Let me see. Gosh, what's a big win for me? Just honestly, my win is my clients. The mastermind, our private community at Leaders Create Leaders is just like booming. It's blossoming, so many wins, and it gives me so much fulfillment to see everybody winning and just making money, doing what they love. So shout out to everybody that's part of the Leaders Create Leaders mastermind and accelerator. What's good, everybody? What's good? Share a win. I'm going to be bringing on here shortly quit your job, Trav. That's what's up, man. Oh, man, doing video full time. Way to just believe in yourself, bro, and just bet on yourself. God bless, man. God bless. Go all in on you. Best decision you'll ever make is bet on yourself. Invest in yourself. Let's see. We got my win is I lost 5 pounds. That's what's up, bro. Use that momentum. Celebrate that. Use that momentum and can keep going. Stay focused. Celebrate yourself. One of the things that I think a lot of us don't do enough of is we don't celebrate ourselves enough. And even the small things. A lot of times we forget how far we've come, truly. And that's something that I know that I face. Like a lot of times I'm sitting back and I forget how far I come because I'm so focused on not at where I want to be just yet, We forget it's super, super important to share those wins. That's why, I make everybody I work with inside of our community on Slack, like everyone's got to share wins every week. It's a must. Wins and the vulnerabilities as well. So, all right, guys, so check it out. I'm about to bring on one of Australia's elite, if not the most elite entrepreneur out of Australia. He has built a community of 350,000 entrepreneurs in Australia under a brand called the Entourage. My man is someone I highly respect. I've been collaborating with him for many, many, many years. When I went to Australia, this was, I want to say, probably 5 years ago. This is when I first, right after exiting my company, and I just started Leaders Create Leaders, I went to Australia and he treated me like a king. He picked me up. He took me to a restaurant. He bought me dinner. He introduced me to other elite entrepreneurs. I mean, he's a guy that I truly believe is a leader, not because of his accolades, but because of his character, the way he treated me and the way he treats others. The guy is filled with wisdom. So prepare your questions around entrepreneurship because I'm telling you right now, this is one of the most prolific entrepreneurs of our generation. Let me see if he's on here now, and then we'll kind of get started. Yes, he's on, my man. Where is he? Let's see. Ooh, my man Jack. Yes. Oh, he's been hustling all day like me. And he's about to come on here and pour into every single one of you. So prepare those entrepreneur questions. Let's elevate. My man.
Yeah, G. How are you, bro?
Oh, so good to see you, man.
You too, man. How are you?
Wow, you look great, bro. You look
You
great.
look incredible, bro.
Thank you,
You've
homie.
been meditating.
You already know that meditating vibe. Got the gym in the house. So
Yes.
I'm healthy, man. It's beautiful out here.
Yes.
Feeling blessed, bro. Feeling super, super, super blessed. So, first of all, I was just telling the story of when I came to Australia. This was probably 5 years ago. I just sold my company, and you were just unbelievable, man. You treated me with such generosity and kindness. You picked me up. Remember, we were in your Benz. You took me to dinner. I didn't even expect you to pick up the tab, and you surprised me, bro. You picked up the tab and treated me to an awesome dinner. Then we had a night out. We had fun, and I'll never forget that. They say that saying, right? It's like, that people won't remember what you do, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And you, my friend, made me feel like a king, and I appreciate that, bro, and I honor you. And so it's cool, man. You ready to dive in and talk to entrepreneurship?
Absolutely, bro. It's funny you mentioned that night, because I often reflect on that night and the amount of spirit and humility that you brought to, I think there was probably 12 people at dinner or something, and to have you there was an incredible privilege. But similarly, man, like, it's exactly what you just said of me. It was your character and your spirit and your soul and your humility that made the whole night just infectious, in the most positive way possible. And so, straight back at you, brother.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. So the way I like to start this is I got to pin a comment about you real quickly. So while I do, can you just do me a favor and just share a little bit about the mission that you've been on? Because you, my friend, have been so devoted to entrepreneurs around the world. You have built one of the most powerful entrepreneurial communities on the planet, 350,000 entrepreneurs. You were ranked one of the top 4 best places to work. You're a legend, man. So, like, just talk a little bit about your mission, how this unfolded for you. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pin that, bro.
100%, man. Yeah, a brilliant question. Thank you for asking. My whole journey started at a super young age. So my parents ran a not-for-profit organization called Breaking the Cycle. And they would take long-term unemployed youth off the street, literally, and put them through a training program that would help them develop employability skills, life skills, personal development, mindset, and then they'd place them into employment. But they could only take a finite number of young adults each year. And so they deliberately pick those from the most challenged of backgrounds, those that were in and out of jail, those that were from abusive homes, those that were drug addicted. And so these kids, I say kids, I was 6 or 7 years of age. They were 18, 19, 20, 21 kids, right? And these kids were coming in looking literally half dead. And then 3 months later, they would have transformed into this entirely new version of themselves with, a clear vision for the future and a clear understanding of who they were, a clear understanding of how to pursue and actualize a vision, right? And even though Breaking the Cycle would choose those from the most challenging of backgrounds, they were the most successful job placement agency for long-term unemployed youth in the country. And so, wow, man, that's really where I grew up, right? And so Breaking the Cycle, I'd literally wag school. My mum was the head trainer and my dad was the managing director. I'd literally wag school and sit in mum's classroom, let's call it, for the day, as she taught mindset and personal development, employability skills to these young adults. And so it's a Breaking the Cycle taught me that the traditional path doesn't work for a lot of people. And I would say the traditional path is working for less and less people, and it's becoming exponentially true. So the world needs changing, and that the world is capable of change. These were people from the worst of the worst backgrounds, but they would literally transform over the period of 3 months, getting in the right environment, the right people, the right support, the right accountability, the right TLC. And so what then happened was the government actually pulled the funding from Breaking the Cycle. Being a not-for-profit organization, the organization collapsed. And so that's where I got my commercial side from, right? Being in mum's classroom, I would say that I am a person driven by impact and contribution and seeing shifts in society than I am by materialistic acquisition, if you like. And so that's what Breaking the Cycle gave me. But the collapse of Breaking the Cycle gave me my commercial edge. I wanted to build, and this is like literally the age of 10 or 11. I remember thinking to myself, I wanted to build organizations movements, exactly like you do, brother. I wanted to build movements, yes, that changed and influenced people's lives for the better, enabled them to grow into the best version of themselves, but in such a way that was profitable, in such a way that we want to be in our marketing, we could do the things that require investment because we're profitable in and of ourselves. And so that was really my foundational upbringing, and that, you can see so many of the seeds in that story that have given rise to the entourage as we know it today.
Wow. That's unbelievable. talk to me a little bit about what because like I'm sure you've probably seen this with so many entrepreneurs that you've mentored and coached, but like the adversity, it's like, what did you have to go through in the beginning to really just get started? Like, what did you face? And kind of talk to me a little bit about some of the struggle that you had to go through in order for you to start to, and was the Entourage your first big company that kind of like started to take off? Like, what led you to building that?
Yeah. So I went into business myself, what was it, 16 years ago. So 2004. And, like everybody, I had my apprenticeship period, right? 3 to 4 years where you're starting businesses and they're failing and some are going well and all that sort of stuff. And then my first real home run was a company called MBE Group. And what we did with MBE is I partnered with a gentleman who was a lot older and more experienced than I was. And we would help small to medium-sized businesses raise money from investors, make acquisitions, and build value to ultimately exit. And so MBE was my first real home run. We helped our clients raise hundreds of millions of dollars. We're one of Australia's fastest growing companies. And it also gave me quite a large profile here in Australia that I was able to draw on. And so it was really on the back of the success of MBE and everything that came with that from a profile perspective, from a financial perspective, from a business capability perspective and a value building perspective, that I was able to take those kind of foundations and then launch the Entourage. To your question around the biggest challenge, I mean, I started Entourage in 2010. Our biggest challenge came in 2016, and you'll like this story, man, because it's really reflective of what my parents went through with the collapse of breaking the cycle. So, but between 2010 and 2016, we grew 100% year on year. We grew to a point where we were trading at a valuation of $60 million, 90 staff. And we then went into accredited education. We started offering diplomas and advanced diplomas, which come with government accreditation and government funding. We came into that space incredibly successfully. But shortly after coming into that space, the government, again, is exactly what happened with breaking the cycle, shifted. They essentially pulled the funding away from the accredited education industry at that particular level here in Australia. And we'd gone very aggressive into building this arm of the business. And so for us, again, government change and shift in regulation meant that we were 3 months away from a monthly loss of $800,000 it was a big one. 3 months away from a monthly loss of almost $1 million. And so we needed to go from, 90 staff to 40 staff, and we had to do that over.
So many people are going through that now too.
Exactly, man, exactly. And so, we needed to do that over 2 days, which, when you've got a culture like ours, similar to the culture that you build in your businesses, brother, it's, having to do that is like cutting off your right arm. I just would have never wished it upon anybody. And then, we had no business model that was going to survive beyond 3 months. We had no product suite that was going to survive beyond 3 months. We were millions and millions and millions of dollars in debt because the government hadn't been paying people for a while. So we weren't in a good position. And it would have been a lot easier at that point to just pull the pin, start again, new vehicle, new business, go again. But I didn't want to do that because there's so much soul in the heartbeat of what we do here. It's so much more than a business for me. Again, it's exactly what I admire about the way you build businesses, right? They're not just commercial entities. These are vehicles that are designed to change the world. And so we persevered through that. We got everybody into business development mode. We built a new product suite. We restructured the company. That was the hardest 18 months of my fucking life. It was the hardest 18 months of my life.
Bro, that is such true leadership at its core, because you didn't quit. You were willing to pivot, and in the face of adversity and peer and pressure at its finest, you stepped into it. You didn't pull back. You stepped in, and I can only imagine. I literally could picture you having sleep nights where you're working at the office to God knows what time.
Exactly.
Just all in, and just having to do whatever it took to turn the company around. And it was because you led by example, because it would have never worked if you weren't the one who was that line at the front, pulling the ship, leading by example, and really championing, probably having a lot of uncertainty like everyone else, but having to be the one. Did you feel, what was that emotionally? Because I've been there where you're you have to be the one that gives everybody the hope and empower everybody. And then you have to also be the one that makes decisions on, this is the strategy, everyone trusts you, everything's on you. And how do you deal with, because a lot of people right now, and how do you relate it to now? For those that are going through transition right now, their company is maybe, you know, going through this aspect of having to shift to go online versus being, you know, in person, and they feel that pressure. Like, what advice would you give to them?
100%, man. You hit the nail on the head a moment ago when you said, you know, your observation was that I leant in rather than retreating.
Yeah.
The number one thing, like at a human instinctual level, the number one thing that we would love to do emotionally when crisis and challenge hits, like it's hit, you know, on a planetary scale right now, the number one thing that we'd love to do is retreat, right? And you want to sort of put your head under the doona and wish it away. And it's the worst thing you can do in periods of challenge. You absolutely have to lean in, and you have to get proactive around how you're going to do that. To your question around, man, every question you just asked is just so beautiful. You absolutely nailed it. To your question around how do you lead in times like that, and I know you've been through this, right? So you're also talking from experience, which is the best book ever written on navigating distress in business, I believe, is The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. And he says, what a lot of entrepreneurs do in challenging times is we're naturally optimistic creatures. And so we tend to, you know, everything's going really negative. We tend to sort of overbalance that. This is my language now, not necessarily Ben's. We tend to overbalance that with positivity and optimism and all of that sort of stuff. And Ben says really well in the book, he says, don't be overly optimistic. Your staff will either think you're stupid or you're lying, and they will be right, right? And so learning how to lead, because all I had known for many, many years was growth and success. And I mean, leading in that environment is relatively easily relative to leading in that environment, right?
Right.
And so you need to, it's not necessarily about energy and a Herculean charge like it is sort of during growth stages. It's more about a grounded, deeper, slower sense of this form of leadership that communicates your sense of care to the human beings that have entrusted you to lead them, right? But it is, it is an incredibly challenging journey.
It's so true. It's so true. You got to be like poised. You got to be poised in those moments, right?
Yeah.
Poised and slow down, and yeah. But at the same time, it sounds like you're also mentioning also vulnerable, because you know, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, only because like I learned this late in my career how vulnerability is also leadership, right? And it's like similar to how Navy SEALs are. It's like you can't act like like you're saying, you can't act like everything is gonna be okay. Like, oh, you know it all, don't worry. It's like being honest about the situation. Here's the reality, right? Showing some vulnerability, getting down to the reality of it and saying, okay, now we know the reality. What are we going to do going forward? And making actual slow, poised, intelligent, sound decisions going forward, and being willing to live or die based on those decisions.
100%, man. That's exactly it. And it is highly relatable to now. And again, what's going on for business owners all over the planet, which is regardless of, you know, right now, one of the sort of thought exercises I went through where as COVID started to take hold around the world was, while we're all in a similar position economically, not all businesses will be affected equally, right? And so I kind of divide businesses into 4 categories right now. You're either distressed, which is you're fighting for survival, or you're challenged, which, you know, you're experiencing a slight decline in sales, a slight increase in customer attrition. But if you manage it well, you shouldn't need to be fighting for survival. You're doing well, you know, you've seen an uplift, you're a digital marketing agency and people are reaching out to you because they're digital, you know, you're doing well. Or you're booming, you know, you sell fitness equipment right now and all the gyms are shut down, and so you're absolutely sold out. You sell hand sanitizer right now, you know, you're absolutely booming. But regardless of whether you're distressed, challenged, doing well, or booming, you should be pivoting right now. You should be changing. If you're in the 3rd or 4th category where you're doing well or booming, it's like make hay while the sun shines, go fast, build as much capacity as possible and deliver it. If you're distressed, it's like we need to be strategizing and scenario planning out different pathways forward to ensure that we survive. And if you're challenged, it's about managing it and leading it as best as possible, such that we minimize the downside and maximize the upside, particularly on the upturn when it occurs. And so I think that, you know, there's so many parallels between what we went through in 2016 and now, which is Entrepreneurs right now need to have a spirit of pivot. Whether you're doing incredibly well or whether you're incredibly distressed, you should be changing in a way that's contextually relevant to what's going on right now.
Wow. So that's interesting. I can understand the pivot when you're distressed and you're challenged. What would you say to the company that's what about the companies that they're seeing the increase, right? Like how do you think that they should be pivoting if they're like already they're saying to themselves, you know what, I'm doing pretty good. You know, my revenues numbers are going up, bottom line's going up, or my company's booming. You know, how can you pivot if you're at that part?
In that instance, pivot might be the wrong word for that category. In that instance, it's certainly not about changing the model or anything like that. What I mean is pivoting your focus. And so if you're in the booming category right now, you should be placing a hell of a lot of focus on how do we build our stock inventory to such a degree that we can meet the demand. If we're a service-based business, how do we build our infrastructure and our capability to deliver more services so that we can meet the demand? And then once we have confidence in our capacity to deliver, how do we scale our marketing and actually invest more in marketing such that we can make hay while the sun shines and really ride this wave? And so it might not necessarily be a pivot, but what I'm saying is you shouldn't just, no business should be operating the same way they were 8 weeks ago, right? If you're doing well, it's let's change our focus to really make hay while the sun shines. And if you're challenged or distressed, then let's do what we need to do to minimize the downside and maximize the upside.
Yeah, I love it. You know what it sounds to me is like one of the key traits to any great entrepreneur, and it's adaptability, right? Like
100%.
You got to learn how to adapt, you know, and I think that that is, you know, it's really important that, because, you know, it's interesting because I don't know if you ever dealt with this, and people shouldn't be afraid of the word pivot, but I'm going to be very honest with you. I remember when my team would fear pivoting. And I think that, you know, what is the difference between pivoting versus adapting? Because a lot of times you think you're like having to necessarily like pivot the entire company, but it's really just like, you know, I feel entrepreneurship is a constant evolution of feedback and adapting and continuing to, because the market's always going to be changing and you have to constantly be adapting. And that's like, if you fear adapting, then you're never going to truly make it as an entrepreneur. But what's the difference between those two?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, you're right. From a technical definition, a pivot is where you're sort of shifting your business model a little bit and shifting the strategy of the company. Whereas adaptation should be the natural and normal state of any early stage high growth business. And, you know, when I say early stage, I mean anything under $50 million revenue. I mean, it's a constant period of iteration. And so, you know, one of the things we do with our 7 and 8 figure clients, we do plan, right? We do build roadmaps because they need to have visibility of the future, and you need to, what I call, architect the future. Where are we going? How are we getting there? What's the financial output of that path look like? And so we do certainly start to plan when a business gets to about 7 figures. However, it's super important that we don't get married to that plan. And it's super important that we don't use that plan as like the blinkers, right? That cut ourselves off from engaging with and listening to the market, the consumer, the different opportunities, the different challenges that are going on in the world. And so my sort of philosophy around this is always have, you know, I think one of our biggest assets as entrepreneurs is the vision that we hold for the future. And so it's critical that you hold a vision for the future. And again, this is something that you do so incredibly well. You're with Elite Daily, with Leaders Create Leaders. Like these are just vision fueled businesses, right? It's so incredibly powerful to have that North Star. But then we need to understand that challenges are going to come. Opportunities are going to come. Sometimes we're going to overperform. Sometimes we're going to underperform. And so adapting, you know, like what's the ultimate framework? You got to roll with the fucking punches. The punches are the framework. The punches are the framework, right? And so while we have a vision, adaptability is the name of the game every step of the way.
Yeah, I love it. So what do you feel are the, you know, the things that an entrepreneur should focus on if you're just starting out kind of 0 to 6 figures versus someone who's going from 6 to 7 figures, from someone who's going from 7 to 8 plus? What are those different stages that you really talk about with a lot of those entrepreneurs that they need to be focusing on?
Such a good question, man. So 0 to 100K, 0 to 6 figures, you're an explorer, right? You're exploring the marketplace. You're exploring the hearts and minds of your consumer. We're exploring our ability to build a meaningful product or service that speaks to that market demand and that addresses that consumer need. And we're kind of triangulating those three forces at a high level to alchemize and to create something out of nothing. And so 0 to 6 figures should be an absolute obsession for consumer and like a visceral interaction with consumer and market, like grassroots, ground level, no ivory tower, no bullshit. Get clear on what's going on in the hearts and minds of your audience and how do you build something meaningful for them. 6 to 7 figures, so 100K to a mil, there has to be an emphasis. I encourage about 80% of your bandwidth as an entrepreneur has to be on sales and marketing. It has to be on revenue generating activities, right? And that's not to say that the product or service will be perfect, because it absolutely won't at that stage of the game. It's not to say the processes will be perfect, because they absolutely won't at that stage of the game. But it is to say that we need to be okay. You know, if we call that 6 to 7 figure period, like that's kind of like a startup-y kind of a stage, we need to be okay with operational imperfection during that period, and we have to drive growth. Research shows that the average 6 to 7 figure company spends 11% of their time on sales and marketing activities. And that's the number one reason businesses don't scale at that stage, right? Because they're just not, they're not engaging with the market from a go-to-market strategy perspective enough. That then kind of changes at the 7-figure mark, because at the 7-figure mark, we've got a bit of a foundation. It's still a bit rickety. There might be some processes in place. Even if they are, they're probably not being used to a huge degree. It's, you know, it's still pretty make it up as we go along. But we've now got more people, we've got more revenues, we've got more customers, and that necessitates infrastructure. That necessitates process. That necessitates having other leaders and managers inside of the business that can help you drive and lead the company and drive and lead the team. Otherwise, you get to 7 figures and it might be $1 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, whatever it is. And you've got a team of 10, 15, 20, 50 people. And every time you go in the office, everybody's constantly pulling at you because you're the only one with the degree of experience or commercial capability that can answer any strategic questions. And so when you get to 7 figures, you need to go from being reactive to proactive. So planning becomes more important, and that architect in the future becomes incredibly more important. You need to start thinking about what is the next generation of leadership that you're fostering in this company, so that's not always going to have a huge key person dependence on you. And you need to go from doing things in startup, we're doing things by exertion. We're marketing by exertion, we're selling by exertion, we're delivering by exertion. You know, you're doing fucking everything and it's high exertion. When we get to scale, 7 figures and above, we need to start thinking about how do you create a marketing engine? How do you create a sales process and a sales system? How do you create infrastructure, people and process that can deliver your products and services without you being operationally involved? And so we go from in startup being the person doing everything to in scale up. How do you actually build processes and engines across the organization that enable you to elevate up out of the day-to-day operations and essentially start to build a company that can work without you?
Wow. Woo! Guys, drop some fire emojis. That was freaking so powerful, bro.
It's such a good question, man. It's like, and that's why I smiled when you asked the question, because there's no one size fits all, right? Like people go, oh, business planning is bad. Well, it's like, if you're in seed stage or startup, then maybe. But if you're in scale up, you have to do it. It's like, you know, there's no one size fits all. And often what's right for an entrepreneur or a business 0 to 100K is the opposite to what we should be doing, you know, 5 mil to 10 mil. And so understanding that contextual stages and what's contextually appropriate at each stage, I mean, that's a conversation I can have all day long because it's so important.
Wow, I absolutely love it, bro. You know, one of the things that I really respect about you is how you started to cultivate leadership in your company, right? Like you scaled, I mean, I don't even know how many employees you have now. How big is the team now?
The team's about 60 now.
60 now, okay. And you got ranked, I believe, one of the top 3-4 places to work in all of Australia. So culture. Let's talk culture, because this is something that I'm really passionate about. I owe a lot of my success to building unbelievable cultures at my companies. Elite Daily, we scaled to 200 employees. Just helped really, you know, really helped to build up that leadership there. And they were young. I mean, most of the people that worked for me were like 24, 25 years old. And it was something that I really owe all of the success to the team and to the culture that we created, that they enjoyed working there. They felt we were invested in them. They were having fun. They understood the purpose. They understood the goal. We used to slap the wall at this 150 million sticker on the wall to reach 150 million. We only got to 80 million people per month, but like everyone was aligned and growing.
We only got to 80 million people per month.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good.
I love it.
So I just want to know, bro, like, what do you recommend for those that are that should be thinking about building culture? And I want you to talk about it in two ways. One way for the person that's here that has a micro team, someone that has a team that's maybe 10 to 12 people right now, remote. They have a small micro team, maybe even less, maybe 5, 6 people, versus where you're at, right? Where now you're over 25 employees. How do you manage really creating a culture that wins?
100%, man. I love that question. Building a great culture for me starts with understanding the difference between management and leadership, which is two topics that I think a lot of business literature and business thinking kind of often conflates. And to me, they're very different things. Management is, every business needs both. Management is numbers, it's KPIs, it's accountabilities, it's weekly check-ins, it's project plans, it's project management, it's performance management, it's process, right? That's management. And every organization needs that to ensure that people are performing according to where we're going and according to the actualization of the vision. We've then got leadership, right? And so leadership is very different to management. They have nothing in common other than the fact that there's people at the center of both of them. They have nothing in common. Leadership is, what is the vision that we hold for this organization that goes so far beyond financial gain? Leadership is, if I'm in your team, to what degree do I feel and understand that what I do contributes to the vision? Leadership is, how do we interact with and treat one another? Leadership is, how does it feel? Leadership is, to what degree are we contributing discretionary effort because we really, really care, right? And so management is intellectual. Think of management is head, leadership is heart. And every company needs both. And my fear in a lot of people conflating the two things is we mistake leadership for management, and we manage the numbers and we manage the accountabilities and we look at the revenues and the profitabilities and the margins and all that sort of stuff. But the human being gets lost because we don't fully understand or appreciate the importance of authentic and genuine leadership. And so I think the key to having a world-class culture, as you say, we were listed the 4th best place to work in Australia and the top 50 places to work in Australasia. And the reason is because I've always obsessed about management and I've always obsessed about leadership. And therefore we built a team of incredibly high performers, exceptional human beings that care so much, and structurally ingrained that management and the leadership such that we're always performing and such that we never lose contact or connection with the true reason why we're here in the first place.
Wow, man, that was so powerful, bro. Like, that is something that I feel a lot of leaders don't realize because they try to do both, right? They try to be the manager and the leader. And I've learned that, like, how important it was for me as a leader to have the support of those managers on my team. Like, you know,
exactly.
My integrator, like Brian, you know, he is everything, you know, helping me to like keep the team accountable and be the one that looks at those KPIs and looks at that weekly performance and helps manage those sprints. And, you know, I can do what I do great, and that's influence the team and, you know, tap into their heart and give them the direction, give them the vision and inspire them and push them and give them strategy. But, you know, having those two aspects is so important. And I feel like the leader, though, does need to have that vision and direction and be paying attention to trends, but at the same time also still needs to be, you know, someone who can execute and know what needs to get done on a day-to-day basis as well. And I just think what you said, bro, is so important.
Yeah, but bro, sometimes I think we're kindred souls, because I didn't even say that, but I mean, you just took the words out of my mouth, which is entrepreneurs are often far better leaders than we are managers.
Yes.
And so what's so important for us to do is exactly what you just said, which is when the company gets to a certain point, I mean, in the beginning, you're going to need to be everything. But when you get to that 7-figure mark, or even slightly before, you want to start thinking about what kind of leader do I want to be, and how do I lead the organization, and how do I start surrounding myself with managers and integrators, as you call them, the same word that I use, because you will be able to find people that can deploy the management side of things better than you can as an entrepreneur. We're far better leaders than we are managers.
Yes, I absolutely love it, bro. You mentioned KPIs, and I feel like I want to just for a second just tap into that, bro, because like I feel a lot of people don't know how to set them, or maybe what they even are, or like how to truly like get clear on what their goals are, what those metrics should be, and how to really evaluate on a weekly basis. And I found that with my clients, by just helping them to get clear on their goals, helping them to get clear on their KPIs, and holding them to, you know, every week, you know, setting those and at the end of the week, evaluating them and then iterating and adapting. So can you talk to me a little bit about the importance of those? And for someone who's listening that, you know, is not, you know, setting their KPIs, like what advice would you give them? Or can give them some like tips on the importance of setting those KPIs, and how do you leverage KPIs in your business?
Oh man, such a good question. And this sort of comes back to what I was saying before in terms of we need both leadership and management, right? If we're all leadership and no management, no KPIs, no accountabilities, we're going to be really well intended. We're going to be really excited. Everybody's going to be hugging and high-fiving, but we're not going to be performing, in which case we're not sustainable. We're not going to be around for long, right? And if we're just management with no leadership, well, everybody's going to know the right things to do, but the organization is going to be soulless and is never going to break through the glass ceilings necessary to truly do something great. And I know people like you and I, G, we're just not interested in operating. We're not interested in owning nor operating within businesses like that, right? Nor are the A players that businesses like ours are going to attract. And so you got to have both. From a KPI perspective, what I encourage entrepreneurs to do is start at a high level, right? View your business. I view business through two seemingly contradictory metaphors and two seemingly contradictory lenses, but they're both equally applicable. I view every business as an organism that has a soul and an energy in and of itself that needs to be nurtured and protected and developed. I also view every business as a production line and a machine that, sorry mate, I don't know if I just cut out. You know, a production, yeah, that needs to be managed, right? And it's important that we have both of those lenses when we look at businesses. And so in terms of the machine and the production line.
It's so funny you use that word, the machine. That's literally the same word that we use teaching and leaders create leaders. It's so cool.
There we go. Every business has 6 elements, right? And so if you look at that production line of a business, there's 6 elements. And this is so incredibly important because I believe that in order to think through a business effectively, we need structure, right? An entrepreneur's worst enemy is a blank piece of paper because you're in the thick of it and you can't see the forest for the trees. And it's like, I just kind of feel like I'm doing everything. Exactly. And so this is the framework that we use. This is what we do with the entourage. We work with businesses across these 6 elements. This is the structure that's essentially the blueprint for everything else. And so the 6 elements of this, we go out into the world and we generate interest and attention, right? So that's marketing. That interest and attention then walks through the door. For most of us, metaphorically speaking, at that point, it's our job to turn that interest or attention into a paid customer. So we call that sales. So we've got marketing, then you've got sales. We've marketed, we've sold it. What do we then need to do? We then need to deliver the products we've developed or deliver the services we've developed. And so the third element is product development and delivery. The fourth element becomes increasingly important as we go up the growth curve is operations, which is the internal workings of the business, the systems, the processes, the technology. We've marketed it, we've sold it, we're delivering the products or the services we developed, we're operationalizing. There's really only one thing left to do, which is count and manage the money, right? So the fifth element is financial management. And then the 6th element is the element that brings all of those 5 things to life, which is people. It's the people that are inherent across each of those other 5 elements. And so if you can start to look at your business through that lens, right, it only does 6 things. And then you start to think about what are the core drivers in each of those 6 categories. Those core drivers will be your KPIs. And so in marketing, it's audience build. And these are generic, people need to sort of apply them and adapt them to their own world. But it's leads generated per month. It's cost per lead. It's cost per acquisition. In sales, it's phone calls had, proposals sent. Or if you're an e-com business, it's unique traffics to the website and how many uniques on the page. It's conversions, it's monthly revenue generated. In product development and delivery or service development and delivery, it's customers successfully onboarded. It's how many complaints did we receive this month? It's how many returns did we have this month? In operations, it's how many systems did we develop and did we deploy and are actually being used. In finance, it's cash flow, it's revenue, it's gross margin, net margin, EBITDA. And then in people, the KPIs should be, you should be doing at least every 90 days some sort of engagement survey that's anonymous so that your people feel empowered to be really brutally honest, because that's what we're after. And it's essentially like an ENPS, like an employee net promoter score. We want to understand how happy they are, how engaged they are, where are we missing the mark, and how do we improve. And so, yeah, I think once someone's got that framework of the 6 elements, think about what are the core drivers in each of those 6 elements. They become your KPIs. They become the framework to which we need to perform.
Woo! Woo! You guys are getting a full-on entrepreneur masterclass. I'm going to send you his PayPal when we're done with this. Oh, man. Thank you, Jack. So listen, I
love it, bro.
For you because you're so freaking amazing. I got to get as much wisdom right now as possible. You've built a community of 350,000 entrepreneurs, bro. That is goals. That is, bro. I mean, honestly, man, I want you to know, like, I honor you and what you've done for our community. And
thanks,
bro, I absolutely love you, man. And you can count on me to go to war anytime with you. But
vice versa, brother.
Man, I got so much love for you, and I appreciate you, what you've done for the entrepreneur community. Because I know when we started, we didn't have these kind of resources.
Exactly, bro.
I know what that does, and I know how that changes not only their lives, but their families' lives and their lineage. So
yes.
Cool, man. But I want to know, bro, like, what is the secret? What are the keys to actually building a thriving online community? Or maybe online and offline, but really a community within your business?
I think it's so incredibly important that every entrepreneur gains a really visceral understanding as to what's going on in the hearts and minds of your customer, right? To me, there are brands right now in the world that stand for so much more than the products or the service that they offer, right? And so for me, one of them is Apple, right? Probably because of Jobs and because of Wozniak and everything that they stood for. I'm just a lover of Apple. I probably always will be. They just stand for so much more than phones and computers in my heart. And for some people, it might be Mercedes. For some people, it might be Harley Davidson. For some people, it might be Amazon. We've all got, or Tiffany's and Co., or whatever it might be. And so the real question is, what do these organizations do to occupy a place in our heart and our mind to stand for so much more than the products or services that they deliver, right? And for me, the answer is it's in their DNA. You cannot fake it, right? You can't just create values one day and put them on a piece of paper and put them up on the wall and expect that to permeate the organization. I believe in values through and through. I believe that values are absolutely everything, but we need to embody them. It actually needs to be a representation of who we are. It can't be a fucking piece of paper on the wall, right? And so I think to create a community, you need to look, it's a marriage between internal and external, right? And so who are we? Who are we genuinely? What's our vision? Meaning, what's the contribution we're here to make? What's our mission? What do we do every single day to fight towards the vision? And what are our values? What are the principles that govern and guide who we are and who we must be every step of the way? And getting really clear on that as an identity and then fucking amping it up, right? And then when that overlaps with what does the world need now? Where is there a gap in the market or a gap in consumers' happiness or satisfaction in a particular industry? When you can truly link those two things and you're coming from a position of it's for real, it's not something we manufactured to appeal to a market. It's for, like, gee, when you talk about empowering leaders and empowering entrepreneurs, and when you go to Peru and you help, like, you are, every fucking cell in your body is wired towards contribution, and to the movement, right? It permeates through absolutely everything. Nobody could ever watch you for more than 3 seconds and doubt that, right? And so that's where it has to start. It has to start with authenticity. You got to be the fucking real deal. And then you've got to map that against what does the world need now? How do I contribute to an industry? How do I shift an industry? How do I better serve the consumers than they're already getting served? And when those two things overlap, then you'll stand for something more than the products or services that you offer.
Woo! So powerful, bro. So powerful. Man, and it's to me, it's brought me the most fulfillment, right? When you build a movement that actually is beyond just the product or service, but it provides this connection and an emotion. And I feel like that to me has been the most powerful thing about, you know, building leaders create leaders, is the relationships that we've built, and the fact that like our customers, our clients, they know that we stand for something that's so much bigger than us, and they truly are behind that mission, and they know that they are just like us, a part of that mission, and their work is part of that mission. And that's why it's leaders create leaders. And I just said, yeah, man, you're on the money. So Jack, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few questions here, bro. And
100%, man. Let's do it.
Wrap it up, man. And I'm
yes, sir.
So cool, bro. Thank you so much for taking time. I know you're a busy guy.
Loving it, bro.
First is, let's see, we got Naomi here that's asking, how do you adapt but also plan ahead in a 0 to 6 figure company? You kind of touched on this a little bit, but how do you do both?
Naomi, that is such a good question. Naomi, at 0 to 6 figures, I wouldn't put too much of an emphasis on planning. Meaning, we do want to have a vision. We do want to have North Stars for the business that we're building, because that's going to inform everything else that we do. But you don't want to have too granular a plan, because what the plan can ultimately do is it puts the blinkers on you, and we forget to interact with the consumer, right? 0 to 6 figures should be constant iteration, meaning we put something out into the market, and that might be we put a business out of the market, or we put a marketing campaign out of the market, or we put a website out of the market, or we put a new product out of the market, whatever it is. We put it out, we figure out what's working, what doesn't work, bring it back in, change. Put it out, figure out what works, doesn't work, bring it back in, change. Put it out, figure out what works, doesn't work, bring it back in, change. And so it's this constant period of iteration. And when we have too granular a business plan in the beginning, what it does is it gives us a false sense of security around our own assumptions. And so because we've got the 80-page business plan, it's got the forecasts, and it looks really academic on paper, and we almost get married to the plan rather than engaging, you know, with the consumer and the marketplace. And so I would encourage you, know the kind of business that you want to build. You know, when I'm speaking to an audience of 1,000 people, I'll say, who here has started a business and 12 months in, it looks completely different to what you thought it was going to? And usually about 70% of the room put up their hand. And I say, that's because you did it right, because you adapted and you evolved every step of the way according to feedback from the market. And so have your North Stars, know where you're going, know the vision and the contribution that you want to make, but be adaptable in terms of the methods and the tactics that we're going to take to get there.
Yeah.
Really good question, Naomi.
Really great question. So we got, let's see, Evangela asks, were there beliefs that you had to let go of to get to where you are now? If so, what were they? What were they?
That is such a good question.
Woo.
Man, I've thought about this for years. One of the things that is so true for us as entrepreneurs is that our personal world changes faster than our personal identity can keep up, right? Meaning, you know, if we go back to when I started the Entourage, I was a guy that had stepped away from MBE, which was quite a lucrative business, and I was now building an entrepreneurial movement from the ground up. And so it's kind of like, well, who am I in that context? And then you've got a small team and you're doing some really meaningful stuff that you love, and it's like, this is freaking awesome. So who am I in this context? And then you've got 90 staff and a valuation of $60 million, and there's more infrastructure, and it's a lot less about courage and make it up as you go along and grit, and now more about like balanced business fundamentals and actually responsible leadership. It's like, man, who am I in that context? And then, you know, what happened to us in 2016, the government pulls the funding, and you go from being a person that's been succeeding, you know, for as long as you can remember, to, you know, managing a business that's in the steepest free fall you've ever seen. It's like, okay, well, who am I now in this context? And then You've got the comeback, right? The road back. It's like, okay, well, who am I in this context? And the same thing happens in our relationships. The same thing happens in our life. And so a view that I've formed over the years is that one of the core personal capabilities we need to form as entrepreneurs is the ability to continually reimagine who we are, never changing who you are, but reimagining how we're showing up and who you need to be in order to best serve humanity and in order to best serve your business, right? And so beliefs that you had to let go of, there'd be thousands of them because every stage of the game in life and in business will require the next version of you. And so it's incredibly important that you don't become attached to the old version of you and that you kind of seamlessly evolve who you are as a human and you are as a soul, such that you can meet every new level with what's required.
So I want to know, what's the latest belief, or what's one that's you just let go of recently? Because, like, God, I feel like this quarantine for me definitely brought some things up. And it's like, and I've been to the depths of my soul with, being in Peru and Costa Rica with ayahuasca and all types of plant medicine. But just even from this quarantine, I realized there was still things, of learning how to trust myself and trust others more, and disappointment, and letting go of feeling like I was going to have any disappointment in my life of people that I love, or, even my relationship with money has consistently evolved, and my beliefs around money have consistently evolved most recently. But has there been anything in particular that comes up for you that you had to switch?
Totally, man. Totally. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. One of the beautiful things about this period right now is it's causing so many of us to reimagine and reassess beliefs we've had in business for so long, right? One of the core ones for me is around having an office, right? I've never,
Oh, wow.
particularly with Entourage, because we've got a team of 60 people, I've never fully considered building a remote workforce. And I don't think we will go fully remote full-time forever. But that's certainly some soil that's been tilled in my mind, in that I am thinking about how do we achieve a balance right now between having an office where you've got the culture and the camaraderie, but also having the flexibility of remote work, which I always had the belief, got to have an office, everyone's got to be together. I'm a camaraderie guy, I'm a team guy, I'm a fucking visceral leadership guy. And man, over the last 6 to 8 weeks, our team, since we've been working remotely, our team has been performing so incredibly well. And so it's really challenged that belief of mine.
Wow, pretty powerful. On that, what was the biggest rock bottom moment, and what were the gems that came out of it? What kept you going? And, what is your why? You guys can rewatch. You talked about it in the beginning. But if you want to touch on that too, but we have about 7 minutes, so I'm going to maybe take one more question after this, guys, and then I'm going to close it out with Jack. Really giving us a lot of time, and I really appreciate it again, bro. So what was one of your biggest rock bottom moments? Thank you, Ali, for the question.
Rock bottom for me was definitely 2016 when the government pulled the funding from the education industry here in Australia. I remember there was one moment where, and we were in an office at the time, and this was completely independent to what was going on in the education regulations in Australia. But we just so happened to be in an office at the time where the landlord had decided to stop doing any sort of maintenance. I think in hindsight, I think the play was he actually wanted us out of there, and he couldn't terminate a lease. And so he figured if he just stops maintaining the building, then eventually we'll leave, which is exactly what happened. But I remember there was one point where I was sitting in my office. This was probably rock bottom for me. I was sitting in my office, and the government had pulled the funding. I was scenario planning around all the redundancies we were going to need to make. I was very conscious that we weren't going to have a business model that was going to survive beyond 3 months. We needed to reinvent a product. So it was literally like everything was crumbling. And then in my personal office, because the building hadn't been maintained, up in the corner, there was like a crack in the roof, and it was raining that day. And so the rain was falling through onto like the floor and the bookshelf and everything of my office. And so I remember there was just a moment where I was looking around. I was like, it seems like everything in my life is fucking crumbling, including the roof of my office,
oh my God.
Right? Which has got a waterfall coming through it, which was just so symbolic and metaphoric for what was going on in our business and in our hearts, really. And so that was rock bottom. what kept me going was what I spoke about before in terms of our vision and our mission and our values. It absolutely made more commercial and financial sense for us to give up and start a new vehicle and go again with a clean skin. The reason I didn't is because I genuinely have an unwavering conviction that we are doing some of the most important work on the planet, and that that's more important than anything else. And so it was the love of and connection for what we do that kept me going.
Wow, so powerful, man. I believe I so relate to that. That's what it comes down to. And as an entrepreneur, you only really truly fail if you quit, period.
100%.
So
it's exactly right.
Proud of you, man. Proud of you. All right, we got this last question here from Danny on the other side of things. He says, speaking on management and leadership as a business owner in an 8-figure business. Congrats, Danny. That's pretty cool. What are ways to be? Oh wait, I can't really see the full question here.
Yeah,
Danny,
yeah, same.
Tell me the second part of that question. It doesn't show. What are ways to be a leader? I'm assuming it's leader and something else here. Can't, if for some reason Instagram doesn't allow me to see the full on.
Yeah, that's weird. Danny, I'm getting the same thing.
Yeah,
what
so
I'll
Danny,
talk to, bro, is
But I thought it was cool to speak on that for an 8-figure business. What are maybe we can just kind of give him some advice here about
100%. I think what he might be asking is what are the kind of leadership and management things that you could do as an 8-figure business owner to ensure that your culture is good. The first thing is we need to ensure that the culture is structurally ingrained. What happens in so many 7- and 8-figure businesses is the culture is too dependent on the founder. And so the founder walks out of the building or takes a holiday or wants to step back from the management of the company, and the culture starts to dilute. So it's super important that you structurally ingrain the culture so that it survives and thrives whether you're there or not.
That's exactly what he just said, by the way. He just came in and said to be a leader and not involved in the day-to-day, which seems to be a lot of the clients that we deal with, right? They want to know how to finally start working on the business, not be working so in the business.
100%. And so the answer is management and leadership cadences, meaning, establish your meeting cadences, establish your ritual cadences. So for example, every Monday morning, and it might be Monday morning for you, morning, or it might be an afternoon. What I want you to get here is the principle around creating cadences that work for you and your team and your business. And so Monday morning, we do a Monday morning meeting, which is a look up at what's coming up over the next 30 days and what are the core focuses of each of the departments for this particular week. We come back the next Monday, we look up at the next 30 days, the key focuses across each department for the next week. And so that's a management cadence. It lets everybody know first thing on a Monday morning, what are the core focuses and priorities for the week. On Wednesday morning, we have Be Wow Wednesday. One of our values at the Entourage is be wow, exceed expectations in everything you do, which for us is a customer orientated value, and it's about always going above and beyond. And so we have Be Wow Wednesdays, which is we come together for 30 minutes every Wednesday morning and we do something that is member focused. We do something that is customer focused. Everybody in the whole team does something that's customer focused, half an hour every Wednesday. Another one of our values is make it happen, be outcome orientated and take responsibility for everything you do. And so every Friday afternoon from 4:30 to 5:30, it's a great way to finish the week before the weekend. We stand in a circle and we do what's called a made it happen circle, which is where you acknowledge, and we don't go around in order or anything like that. It's literally everyone standing around with a beer or a wine or a juice or a popcorn, whatever. And you're literally just shouting it out. It's fun. It's completely unstructured. But what you're doing is you're calling out people that have demonstrated the values of the company that week and upheld the culture that week. And so that's an example. And then, so that's an example of a leadership cadence. The other example of a management cadence is every single person in our business gets a one-on-one with their direct manager every single week. And so these are all management and leadership cadences that are designed to every single week, every single month, every single quarter, we're doing the same things to hit the right marks from both a management perspective and a leadership perspective to ensure that everybody knows what success looks like and feels supported in how to actually achieve it.
I love it. Thank you, Jack, so much. We have probably about a minute here before Instagram will probably shut us down. I think it's 1 hour.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, again, thank you so much, bro, for coming and sharing some wisdom, supporting me. You've always supported me. I love going and being a
Vice
part of
versa,
your
brother.
tribe and pouring into them. Count on me anytime. I'm there for you, there for your community. When this whole thing ends, I got to come back to Australia. We got to go out, have some oysters and hang out.
Yes,
We could
you
kick it.
talk my language.
There you go, man. I can't wait for that, bro. Definitely
I
have
love
to.
you, man. And
And
G, straight back at you,
appreciate you.
bro. Keep being the light that you are in this world, man. You're a huge inspiration for me. You're a huge inspiration for so many people here in Australia. I love talking to you, bro, and I can't wait until the world is back to as normal as possible, and you can come out to Australia, and I'll get over there as well. And yeah, some oysters and some French wine are in order.
Exactly, bro. Exactly. And keep doing what you're doing, bro, because as we age, man, as we get older and older, bro, like this next generation too of just unbelievable leaders that are coming up, before like coming up after us that we can now give these tools to, and the next Steve Jobs, right? The next Oprah, the next, Elon, like these leaders that are coming up in this next generation that are going to learn about you and the entourage and leaders create leaders and really create this new world, man, and make it a better place. So again, bro, appreciate you. Thanks for what you're doing, and I'll talk to you soon.
Much love, brother. Thank you so much, man. Chat to you soon, brother.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you. We have another powerful live. Jack Delosa, make sure to go follow him. He has an unbelievable community. He's been a supporter of mine. I've been an entrepreneur for 18 years, and he just has been such a supporter, man, and a good friend of mine. All the way on the other side of the world in Australia. It's so cool that we have such dope entrepreneurs now from all over the world. And this is what it's about, that mudita mindset. Mudita mindset is a Sanskrit that means to celebrate the success of others with joy and without envy. And that's the kind of mindset all entrepreneurs need to have. We need to celebrate each other, collaborate with each other, empower one another, challenge each other, push each other. And that's what it's all about. So go check out the Entourage. All of these live streams will be on my podcast. I just dropped a new one today, every week, Tuesdays and Fridays. So go subscribe to the Leaders Create Leaders podcast on iTunes or Spotify. Tag me in your Insta story. Leave a review. I really appreciate it. And I hope these were valuable, guys. Enjoy the weekend. And I'll see you guys back on live stream on Monday. And shout out to everybody. Go celebrate your wins. I love what he just said about on Fridays with his team, right? The Make It Happen Fridays. Go celebrate your people, right? Even if it's personal, business, go celebrate the people that made shit happen this week. And if you made shit happen this week, I celebrate you. Keep going, keep the momentum, double down, stay focused, and remember that improve the leader, you improve the business, all right? So go be the leader. Shout out, guys. Peace.